Skywatcher coming at you March 7th, 2020 on a beautiful sun and moonlit sky. Approximately 5:30 Eastern Standard Time. Now if we look at this Earth as a big pancake and these as circular balls, maybe not contoured like a basketball or a baseball or a softball, but actually just maybe a disc is all we really may know. It's all the scientists may actually know, because we've never been there. Because we've already followed along our studies with the moon. You can see it right up there. We'll notice that its light is cool. And we can again demonstrate that real quickly for anybody just tuning in with our handy thermometer test. This sun right here, we put it on, it is going to come up, I don't know, right around 270 degrees. But that, of course, then means it's heating the air up. It's giving us our warmth and our little bit of anticipation for a nice spring with green grass and budding trees. Now, with the moon and the sun here in the same sky, sitting above the flat Earth, and that's what it would really actually be like. They're just traveling across the sky as they look. The moon will be traveling westbound, and the sun will be just traveling further away there. And we showed the planes in the sky, because if there was a plane right here, it would appear if it's climbing until it gets above you, then it would be descending, unless they're taking alternate routes. But primarily, that's what a plane will look like after it's gotten up, hit its altitude. It just even keels out on its elevation, and then just stay straight above a flat Earth, just like NASA's writings. We need to produce a plane, I believe, is where they were stated in writing down that they above a non-rotational flat surface, aka flat Earth. So, back to the thermometer test. This moon is lighting up itself as far as we know. One thing we do know is that it's not reflecting the sun onto us, because at 300 some degrees, which we kept on putting it up there to be right around 270, 280, obviously it has warmth. Now, if it were bouncing off the moon, it would then be adding more warmth to the Earth, because now we have a mirror reflection. You can bounce warm heat off of mirrors. So then the sun would be hitting the moon and then adding more to the warmth that it already is providing this ground. Understood? So the sun right here is warming this pavement right below my feet here, and so would this moonlight coming back to the Earth as well. But as we'll soon discover again, if you're just coming in with us, is that while we have a 49-degree temperature, this will usually bounce about 1 degree, 2 degrees. It's calibrating, pulling it out of the pocket. And we'll see that we have a steady temperature of 49 degrees, both in the moonlight and in the sunlight. Now, if that moon were actually lit up from the sun, if we take the moon's light out of it, it should cool down a bit. But in fact, it warms up. We are behind the truck here that has been parked here for quite some time. There's no heat coming off of it, and it is blocking the moonlight. Now, if we walk back into the moonlight, still in the sunlight, it will go back down. 50 degrees in the moonlight behind the truck, and it will go up higher. 51, 52. Back into the moonlight, and it's going to be cooler. This works regularly, so about a 1 to 2 degree difference. You go back and forth over and over, both in the moon and the sunlight. There's the truck. Now we're going to put it right into the shade of the moon. The moon can't reach here, and the temperature goes up. 50 degrees, 51 degrees. Right into the moon, 48 degrees. So that does exclude this object, whatever it is up in the sky, from being visible to the human eye or cameras by the sun. Interesting, isn't it? Because that is evidence. Absolute evidence is this building is made of bricks from 1960s. Maybe right around just previous to the Brady era. So again, that is significant to many. Did anybody die over that information? Did anybody get hurt? Did they fall down? Did they go into a tizzy? No. I mean, hadn't we corrected some things along the line and no longer put leeches on bodies to suck the blood out to heal them? You know, we would applaud new advancements when something's wrong, and just because it's 2020 doesn't mean that some of our teachings would ever be wrong. That's one of the things that we're learning the more we go on, is that a lot of our teachings were wrong, and that heck, we are a lot more like other generations that believed in other things. We're also experiencing coercions at times, or pressures to say this is why it has to be this way. Now, what if we stayed in some areas and we were still just walking around instead of vehicles? What would that do to our lives? Weren't we glad that people broke through and they made good inventions and new engineering that allowed us to be able to travel more easily, and that we have indoor water? Aren't those great things? Now, maybe people thought that they couldn't reverse the situation, or that they only could drink water from the streams. The point being is, there's lots of them, if you give some thought to it, that if things were incorrect, just like burning witches at the stake, although some ex-husbands, ha 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 ha, or ex-wives, ha 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 ha, might think differently. So again, this is one that is a very neutral zone. This isn't challenging really that much money as a whole, but perhaps it's challenging small groups that had colluded together to make decisions for the way people should think about things, whether they were right or whether they were wrong. Of course, any good scam, any good big giant collusion of sorts has a little, they're trying to get people to believe one thing when in fact it's another thing. They'll mix in a little bit of the truth. Every good hoax has a little bit of the truth and a little bit of the false, of which they're trying to sell us. So they're trying to sell us this. And they are no longer selling me and hundreds of millions, if not more people, no longer believe that moon as a round rock up in the sky that is reflecting the sun's light. Now, if they were to do that incorrect by telling us this sun bounces off that moon is the way we see it, they were that incorrect, because they're saying that the earth rotates and that the earth is chasing that. Now just vision this. That is what it appears like. And this is what it appears like. A light in a way, with maybe some variations in its color and how it emanates. This a cool light, this a warm light. Just above the flat surface, surrounded by a dome. Would that bring that into play possibly? Of course it would. Maybe that's what they're trying to really not wanting us to know. What would it change if we did know that? A lot of people believe that these days already. They live normal, good lives. Or there's some criminals in the mix too. But just like anything else, you're going to have a varying mix. I don't think their knowledge or their belief of it being Earth as a flat surface in a realm that still has physical entity about it, density of the product itself, which is really what gravity is then. So unraveling all these lies is what happens after a while in regards to things that generally aren't super important to most people. Those in the field, again, are the most vehement of being objective. Those that are in the field of objectivity, when we think of science, we think of people that are about the facts. But the ones in that field as well. If you work in a prison system, you think more people ought to be in prison. If you work in a hospital, well, you don't mind more people being in the hospital. That's a little bit of far stretch, but it's probably true with a lot of the workers, and certainly maybe even the stockbrokers are the ones that really own the hospitals. If you believe in this particular church, you're going to believe in this one a little bit more than the other. If you believe in the Mexican food, you work at the Mexican restaurant, you're going to defend tacos more. Well, the same thing. So the better opinions and experiments, explanations that are truthful, quite often come from people that are outside of the field of which they are employed by. That's what we call common sense and discernment. And because of that kind of level of discernment, we then probably now are able to open up to new ideas. Maybe we wouldn't want to fund $18 billion to NASA to hold something that is no longer true or passable if we continue to rise. At least it would be something that we could say the people's opinion, educated opinion matters. Now, I bet the person that sold moccasins didn't want the new gym shoes to come along. So let's not let our progress slow down because we are willing to accept something that is already proven to be false. Modern astronomy is false, and that is just a fact. And this thermometer in my pocket is exactly one of the reasons that it can be proven without any doubt whatsoever. Now, you can take this as a laser. 1 mile would show an inch over water. If they really, as all the hoorah about flat earth and round ball, wouldn't you think that at one point or another, that 1 mile, which is 5,200 some feet, not that far from here, maybe down to Secor, and this is Douglas Road, you're familiar, maybe 3-4 blocks, if somebody's not familiar with the area, that they could have a stream of water with a precision laser looking over it, showing that there's no 8-inch curve, that that water does not curve 8 inches over 1 mile per the globe dimensions, meaning a globe means a big ball, a beach ball, a volleyball, golf ball, marble. It has to have a bend to it. That means the water's supposedly bending. If the water's not bending, it would have to bend 8 inches over 1 mile in a controlled laboratory experiment. Then it is not a globe, because all the oceans would need to bend to make this ball. And if there's no bend over 1 mile or even a half a mile, so what difference would that make besides that now we believe that we are receiving the truth, and we are then more likely to believe the legitimate science fields? So the science field, or the industry of science of its totality, is so wrong about one thing, it hurts the legitimacy of the other areas. So if you support the lie, you're helping create more doubt than necessary. Thus, really, by not accepting that what we were told in school was a lie, are a part of the problem of creating the doubt and some of the chaos from it. Now you can deny morality and true responsibility and maturity if you like to, but you'll lose on that battle as well. You don't have to focus every day, I can't believe I live on a flat earth, oh my God. It's not that big of a deal to most people. Our lives generally don't change. Our houses don't suddenly warp because we live on a flat surface, by and large, not a globe. Our restaurants don't change, our families don't change, our cars don't change, our jobs don't change unless you work for maybe those that are teaching the false lies. Maybe innocently they teach it, and maybe some of them don't. I'm sure there are some people in the field now that are probably contemplating. Well, we wonder sometimes, like, what else can we offer that's new and good, as opposed to stretching the truth and going into maybe spiritual zones that are too hard to figure out, which is part of the knowledge and the growth of learning experience of being an adult, that there's certain things, it's like, well, I just can't figure out what that thing flew in the sky was. And to try to figure it out just leads to more guesswork. But it's easier if we know for sure what is not true on what to believe in. Well, I've rattled enough here, and we'd like to stop speculation about these boxes up on the wires. Can they shoot little rays out that are harmful? Can it be used that way? Just say whether it is or it isn't. Often it's like, oh, what was that? Is it coming from something, set up in that infrastructure of the towers and the cables with the boxes? Why would that be? Or is it organic? And I bet that if the more we learn how to be peaceful, the more we learn as a people to resist such temptations of allowing just the small authorities to control such things, that we would then learn how to conquer our biggest other problems, which are huge, with our trees getting brittle, with our insects and wildlife and ocean suffering. Maybe we can find the answers and salvage what's left. And that right there, Captain Plane. See, this plane most likely is flying at an equal elevation. Not everything is as it looks. Because when it gets right above here, if we keep on watching it, it's going to come down this way. If you can look at the whole sky, there it is still. So it looks like it came like up, like it's climbing up, like the sun. East, the sun rises up until it gets above your head at noon. And then shortly, this thing's going to look like it's going downward towards the western horizon. Same thing with the sun. Now it's all the way down here, but earlier it looked like it was climbing downward, or climbing, going this way down to the west, depending on which direction. Sorry to stumble on my words there, but yeah, that it had descended this direction, going west. When it coming from the east, before it got above our heads, it looked like it was rising up to this point, then descending until it disappears and out of sight. And who knows, maybe there are more than one sun. Maybe we cannot get up that high in the sky to be able to really tell, and that's been the guarded secret. And maybe we're facing another one, not exactly the same, but the coronavirus, Corona's crown. Maybe there's some groups of people that like to sit back and chuckle. It's like, how much can we push these mass of people around and disrespecting us? Well, the more that we hold on to the lies, and I know there's time, people have to readjust out. They're very respectful people that believe in some of the big lies just because they feel like it's too much to change, and maybe in time in history it was wise not to reveal as much of the information. But now, also, it seems to be when we should start breaking out some more of the truth. In order to get to the real truth, you got to get rid of the things that are false. So hopefully we'll continue to move along, because there is, by most people's acceptance or acknowledgement, tremendous amounts of changes in the world today. We have to watch our use of technology. We have to be a little bit more careful and cautious about what we allow. Now, I know the worst of the fears is that it's culminating to something that would be drastic upon the human population. And we don't want to be cowering into fear too much, because then we won't be able to stop what this level of dominating human beings and their thought and their body and their ability to even travel. And that's somewhat what the crown virus is doing. Some think that a lot of the viruses are completely made up, swine, avian, all those. Can they really prove it enough? Can they show the electronic images of a normal cell, I guess, or part of the blood work, to be able to determine without any shadow of a doubt that that is a specific, not anywhere else but to the new virus that it arose, completely different than anything? Can they do that? Or are they just guessing, even if it's good intent? But again, if we have governments these days that like to take advantage of every, potential opportunity, what's it adding up to all of us for? Well, that's why it's still good to face these things, because if they do have the potential and they are going to maybe utilize it, and we would not want to perish because of it, from all the people that even put them up that may not have known the full scope of it. I mean, isn't it only fair as a whole? And although we can't always balance fairness, we darn well should try. We know it's unfair. And what if we had enough awareness? That's one thing that hasn't been changed yet, where people just automatically assumed it, and they wrote in their pamphlets or their small newspapers, and they put it online regularly. So it became ordinary, regular table talk. And if all that happened, do you think that maybe we could make a change of what we have put up in our own private and public lands? Public lands are still funded by the taxpayer. We should have that right. And that's not a fairy tale or a fantasy. That's the way it is in a lot of things. Government just can't come in and take a lot of people's homes and zap them away. People say, they can do whatever they want, but in general they don't, because they know there'll be enough resistance and fight back about it. Well, the same thing with whether these are harmful to our health, even if they may not be as much of an intense human grid control, that it still is emanating too much. Or maybe we would find out a lot of the illnesses could be heightened from it, not even intentionally. So that's why it is wise and smart and prudent and duty-like to question these things. I think we're beyond conspiracy. I think we've seen by now that there have been significant levels of conspiracies against the people, because somebody had to conspire to make you think that that sun was 93 million miles away and that this moon was lit by it. Took some planning and some organization and colluding with one another, that one group or several groups would be able to hold that secret, but you were not allowed. Well, it's been foiled. Spot on. been ripped apart now. The only thing now is deciding whether we're going to continue to pass the message about it. And there's maybe a light way in. And speaking of in, time for the meeting.